Okay, so now we've finished the discussion of the semicha and the controversy, everything that ensued because of that. We can talk about Bet Yosef. We've already went in the past through the introduction to Bet Yosef, but so now we'll touch upon it briefly. Rabbi Yosef Karo invested 32 years of his life in writing the book Bet Yosef, which is the commentary on the rabbi-karo by Rabbeinu Yaakov ben Rabbeinu Asher. He worked 20 years on writing and 12 more years on the second edition, on proofreading second edition. So this was really the major, his magnum opus and masterpiece of his life. He started it in Edirne, in Adrianopolis, in 1522, and finished it in Sefat in 1542, 20 years. While he was writing, he had visions with the angel saying, "Azakecha ligmor hibucha le'ir bo'anei kol Yisrael, shekol amim hachamim nevonim u'maskilim yishavu mehibucha sheikara Bet Yosef yirveyun mideh shel betecha." He says, "I will give you the merit to finish your work and with it to light the eyes of all Jews. All of them will draw water like drink from your book called Bet Yosef. Your wisdom will spread out. Shimcha yizacher b'vatei knesset u'vatei midrashot, and your name will constantly be mentioned in synagogues and halls of study. ובכל עת שיזכירוך בבית המדרש יעלה ריח אפרך כקטורת בסמים. Whenever your name will be mentioned in the Bet HaMidrash, the fragrance of your ashes will rise like incense, like the ketoret. With that you'll know how much you have achieved and that you will be able to sanctify my name publicly. So here we see an interesting concept. Rabbi Yosef Karo always had the visions by the angel telling him that he will die for sanctifying God's name, Lamut al Kiddush Hashem, which in Spain, before and during and after the expulsion, was a very common thing. It was called the auto da fe, the act of faith, where Jews, Baranos, people who were found out to keep their Judaism in secrecy, would be tortured and then executed. And a lot of people chose openly not to convert and to go to the gallows, which is there be in any form of execution or torture. So that was the ideal, then under influence, of course, of the Christian world. But that was an ideal that Rabbi Yosef Karo speaks about constantly in his books. But we know that he died a natural death. He did not die al Kiddush Hashem. But here the angel alludes to that kind of maybe an exchange where he says, whenever your name is mentioned in the hall of study, whenever someone says, "Oh, this is what Rabbi Yosef Karo writes in the Bet Yosef," or "This is what he writes," "This is what Bet Yosef says here," Bet Yosef says there. Every time the name is mentioned, it's like incense that is being burnt on the mizbeach, and its smell goes up to heaven. It's like a sacrifice, but it's not a regular sacrifice. He said, "Ya'aleh reach efrecha," the smell of your ashes. So the ashes are usually the ashes of the korban. The korban, the burnt offering, is fully consumed by the fire, but also it's the idea of those who died for Kiddush Hashem by burning. There is a prayer like that in some of the Sidurim that we say that after reading the Akedah, the story of the binding of Yitzhak, we say that may Hashem consider the Akedah as if it was carried out, as if Yitzhak was burnt, and that Hashem will consider the ashes of Yitzhak for our merit and will have mercy on us. So here Rabbi Yosef Karo, by saying that the fragrance of his ashes will rise to heaven, he means that even though he didn't do it physically, but conceptually he sacrificed his life to sanctify Hashem's name. It's as if he himself is the olah, is the sacrifice. And he says, Sefer Zeh Mazon LaKol, in his introduction, he says, my book provides food or nutrition for all, and just like Bet Yosef, the house of Yosef in Egypt, was provided physical food for everyone, my Bet Yosef will provide spiritual food for everyone. Not only that, Rabbi Yosef Karo, in the introduction, refers to himself as Yosef in the sense of Yosef HaTzadik, who was in Kabbalah, is considered Sefirat Yesod. Of the 10 Sefirot, Yosef is considered to be Sefirat Yesod, the lowest Sefirah before Malchut. Yesod means foundation, and it is the masculine concept of the Sefirot, which has to reunite with the feminine concept of the divinity. That's the zivug that we spoke about when we spoke about Kabbalah and other concepts of tefillah. So he is the chain, the link in the chain that connects the earthly with the divine. So this is a very unique situation in the world of halakha, to see someone who is very steeped in halakha, and in practical life, reality, he sends answers to people who ask him. He's involved in court cases, etc. But at the same time, is also very mystical, very connected to Kabbalah, and so that is part of the probably the charm or the success of Rabbi Yosef Karo, that he was a man of many worlds. He was with Kabbalah and Halakha. He combined in his Halakha the Ashkenazi and the Sephardi world. So he was able to bring them all together. The argument for writing the Bet Yosef is the same as Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, Rambam writes in his introduction to the Mishneh Torah, the same as Rabbeinu Yaakov ben Rabbeinu Asher writes in his introduction to the Turim, and the same as Rabbi Yaakov Berav uses when he wants to renew the Semicha. What is the argument? Unfortunately, because of the persecutions and the wanderings and sufferings and tortures and migrations, we have lost our wisdom. We have no scholars. Nobody knows how to handle halakha. We have to write it down for future generations. So each one of them used. So when you look at it chronologically, you realize that this is not a one-time event. It was always like that. And every generation looked back and said, "Oh, they were greater than us, and today we don't have scholars of that level." So that is the excuse for writing the book. Rabbi Yosef Karo himself paints a worldview of anarchy. There's no central command. There's no central authority that will tell people what to do. And he presents the two books that preceded him. One is Mishneh Torah of Rambam, and the other one is Arba'at Turim by Rabbeinu Yaakov ben Rabbeinu Asher. And we mentioned remember that we spoke about the difference between them. I'll say it briefly. The Rambam is very methodical and organized, but he only gives one halakha, one option. Rambam doesn't give people options. He doesn't say some people do this, some people do that, or this is the minhag. He only mentions the minhag in few places in the Mishneh Torah in order to refute it, in order to reject it. It says, for example, in Kriyat Torah, he says, Kriyat Torah, the widespread minhag is to finish the Kriyat Torah every year. But this is the widespread minhag. Some people have the minhag to finish the Torah every 3 years, but ve'enu minhag pashut, this is not widespread, meaning it has to be overridden. We don't follow that. And Rambam also does not mention, Maimonides doesn't mention his sources. What are the sources in the Talmud or the Gaonim, the previous writings from which he derived his conclusions? Rabbeinu Yaakov ben Rabbeinu Asher, on the other hand, brought all sources and all opinions, and it became sort of an encyclopedia of halakha, organized by topics, unlike Rambam that covered all halachot, whether they're relevant or irrelevant, meaning things that have to do with the temple, with the tzaraat, leprosy, and other things. Rabbeinu Yaakov just included the halachot that are practiced today, and his book became widespread from the time he wrote it in the 14th century to about 200 years later, at the time of the Bet Yosef. It was already copied and printed again and again. So it was a very popular book the most popular book in the field of halacha in the Jewish world. People liked it because it gave the full array of opinions, Sephardi and Ashkenazi. Also, something that contributed to the popularity of the tool that Rabbeinu Yaakov wrote was that his father, Rabbeinu Asher, came from Germany. He was a Talmid of Maharam of Rothenburg, and then he moved to Spain. So he represented both Ashkenazi and Sephardic tradition. And when he came to Spain, he was recognized as a scholar, and he was given great respect by the scholars of Sepharad. So he had this authority that people would follow. So Rabbi Yosef Karo, when he wants to write his book of halacha, he debated between using Rambam as the basis or using the Rabbeinu Yaakov, the Baal HaTurim, as the basis. He wanted to do it originally following Rambam, but then he decides for Baal HaTurim because it was the most widespread book. Not because of its organizational method, but rather because everybody used it. So, and remember we discussed that above all, the aspiration of Rabbi Yosef Karo was that everybody will use the book. So it's not as much like Maimonides to give a psak halacha that everybody would follow, but rather the book would be used by all. So a huge difference. When Rambam shows you the halacha, he says, I want you to follow my halacha. There's no other option. When Rabbeinu Yaakov writes the halacha, he says there are 5 halachot, sort of, I'm just recording what people say. And he doesn't give the final ruling. Rabbi Yosef Karo does give the final ruling in Beth Yosef and in the shulchan-aruch, but he gives more than one ruling. They're all his, but there's more than one. And as a result, if you follow any of the rulings, you could say, I'm following shulchan-aruch. So, he's not telling you there's one halakha that you must follow, but no matter what you do, you would follow shulchan-aruch. And as a result, you have shulchan-aruch harav by the Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Vlad Yehuda, the first Admor of Lubavitch, who which is followed by many, both Sephardim and Ashkenazim. You have Aruch HaShulchan by Rabbi Haim Ovadia, who represent the German modern Orthodox psika on that. There's Arech HaShulchan, Ma'achot HaShulchan. Everybody wrote on that Kitzur shulchan-aruch that you have according to the Halabi tradition, Moroccan tradition, Ashkenazi, Hungarian. Everybody relies on the shulchan-aruch, and everybody says, even in the vernacular among observant people, when you want to say that this is the one concept that you follow, you say this is my shulchan-aruch. Even if you talk about computers, right? Use like the same way in the non-Jewish world, people use the Bible. The Bible is that book. A lot of Orthodox Jews say, this is my shulchan-aruch. This is what I follow. So he really succeeded in that. But of course, because of his comprehensive knowledge, put everything together in a very clear form. Anyone who studies halacha for smicha must study Beth Yosef, because he breaks down the discussion in the Talmud, and he shows why the later poskim followed A or B or C, but whether it's based on an interpretation or a different text that they had or a different reason that was local. He breaks it out very, very clearly, and he also adds to the Baal HaTurim questions and answers from the responsive literature that the Baal HaTurim did not use, mainly the Shel Shuvot of the Rashba. Rabbeinu Shlomo ben Adret was the student of Ramban, and he also used the Shuvot Haran, Rabbi Nisim Girondi, and others. So when Rabbi Yosef Karo presents what books did he use in order to write the Beth Yosef, that's interesting. It's not only Sephardim. People think that Rabbi Yosef Karo represents the Sephardic halacha, but he doesn't. He uses a combination, even though he usually tends to go with Rambam, usually rules like Rambam, but in the books that he used to analyze the sugyot and to decide the halacha are from all corners of the world. Less from the Middle East, but mostly Spain, France, Portugal, and Germany, and the literature of the Gaonim. So it covers everyone, and in that manner, it makes it accessible to everyone. The ones, like I said, that are lacking, are not there, are what we call Hachamei Arabistan. Anyway, Rabbi Yosef Karo became the authority for Hachamei Arabistan, the Middle East. But what he does use that was very popular in Arabistan and the Ottoman Empire are Kabbalistic sources, mainly the Zohar. So Rabbi Yosef Karo mentions 32 books that he relies on, and some commentators say it's a symbolic number because 32 is the number of Netivot Chokhmah, the paths of wisdom, which is mentioned in Sefer Yetzirah. So it's a symbolic number. But if you count also the Zohar and the Ramban that he uses and are alluded to in his introduction, that makes it 34. To those 34, you add Baal HaTurim himself, the book on which he relies, and himself, Rabbi Yosef Karo, which brings it to 36, which in Kabbalah is an important number. We have the tradition of the 36 tzaddikim, the Lamed Vav, people call the Vavniks, or the tzaddikim nistarim. There are 36 hidden figures, hidden righteous people who have almost a level of prophecy like Moshe Rabbeinu. So Rabbi Yosef Karo has 36 sources that he relies on, and he covers all of the Jewish world. Yes.
I thought the shulchan-aruch was not so accepted by the Ashkenazim, and that's the reason Rabbi Moshe Isalis wrote the Ramah, wrote Mapal HaShulchan, in order to help them to accept. True.
So Rabbi Yosef Karo did not mention many of the.
It was too harsh for the Ashkenazim.
It's not about harsh. It's not about kulot. Some say it's a kulot. Some say that the Beit Yosef is more mekel than the Ashkenazim. But it's not as much about this. It's more about local practices. Minhag makom. There were many minhagim that were not recorded in the official books of halakha or in the official literature of responsa. They're minhagi akilot. They were very, very common in especially in Europe. There were the three famous kilot shum. Shpaira, Vermaiza, Magenta, that had their own Pinkas HaTakanot, their own Minhagim. Then you had the other 7 cities, Zibbenbergen. If you know Yerushalayim, there's like Sheva Arim. There's a street in the old city. It's about this sort of like community of 7 cities that decided together. There was the Kilot Ahu, Altona, Hamburg, and Wandsbach in Germany. Each community has its own takanot, and there were things that went hundreds of years. Not everything Rabbi Yosef Karo was aware of, and maybe even though he was aware, he sometimes he rejected certain minhagim like kaparot, for example, whether you do it with money or with chicken. Rabbi Yosef Karo was in favor of money instead of chicken. But even though Rabbi Moshe Isalis wrote the Mapal HaShulchan, the tablecloth for the Shulchan, which is the set table of Rabbi Yosef Karo, it still goes together. So when you ask someone who follows only the Ashkenazi minhag, who do you follow, right? And he says, I follow the Ramah, but this is my shulchan-aruch. They still refer, even though they talk about the Ramah, Moshe Isalis, and the Mechaber, the Mechaber Rabbi Yosef Karo, still, in essence, you follow the shulchan-aruch. So his goal was achieved by doing that.
But even then, the majority of items that of halachot that the Ramat came up with were only when they conflicted with a minhag. It was not like a straight halacha where it says, okay, said, like saying kiddush, at the synagogue where shulchan-aruch says you shouldn't do it. But the Rama says if you have the minhag of doing it, you do it. But if you don't have it has a way around it. So it's kind of a balance between a minhag where you would have to know the community and you would know what the consequences would be.
Right.
Because of that, of not doing it.
Right, but that's right.
Yosef Karo just did in general. Yeah.
No, but that's in the printed edition. The common edition that we have of the Rama are what we call the Haga, the proofreadings or the comments on the shulchan-aruch. But originally, Rabbi Moshe Yisraelis wrote a full book very much in the format of Bet Yosef called Darchei Moshe. And but Rabbi Yosef Karo beat him sort of to printing it and publishing it. And Rabbi Moshe Yisraelis said, "There's no point of printing my book when this book is out there." So he said he pulled it. Later on, it was published. But what he did was he added his comments. That's why what we see is more just the conflicting areas. But the original work of the Rama was a full book. So we'll talk more tomorrow about how Rabbi Yosef Karo was aware of the importance of printing. He took advantage of the nascent technology of the printing press. He chose where to print it in Italy because the publishing houses there were better than the ones in the Ottoman Empire, and this is a combination of his knowledge and his special location in this junction in Jewish history and his ability to use the technology. All these came together to make the shulchan-aruch and the Bet Yosef to what they are today that everybody follows.